So great to have you on. First of all, I just got to say, you are out in Edmonton, and I cannot imagine what it must be like out there right now while Connor McDavid is putting on this historic season. What is that like from your point of view?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. No matter where you go, people want to talk about the Oilers, be it young, old. People who don't even watch hockey that much love watching Connor McDavid because he's on pace for a record that hasn't been seen in over 30 years. He could get 155 points, which hasn't been seen since the 90s. And it's amazing because watching him play, to me, he's like a hockey cyborg. He goes through a defender, no problem. He can go through your entire team. He can take out the fans sitting in row 300 without a problem.
Who do you think is the most dangerous team right now? People talk about the Boston Bruins. People talk about all these other teams. What do you think? Who do you think is the most dangerous team in the Rangers as well? Who do you think is the most dangerous team in the NHL this year?
Oh, it is tough to not say the Boston Bruins because right now they're on pace to break the record for most wins in NHL season. And in regulation, they have lost only 11 times all year, which is amazing to see. So I got to go with the Boston Bruins. And in terms of their depth, you got Bergeron, Pasternak, Taylor Hall is hurt, but he's going to come back off LTIR soon. There's so much depth of the forward core. And then defensively, it's tough to stop the Boston Bruins. And then in net goaltending-wise, with Ullman and Swayman, they've got such a strong 1-2 punch in net that it's tough to see the Bruins going out early this year, gang.
Ava, you talked about 30 years since Connor McDavid in terms of seeing somebody so dominant, but talk to me about the drought that Canada's experiencing right now in winning a Stanley Cup. You mentioned the Bruins, the Avalanche, the defending champs. Are we going to see a Stanley Cup stay here in the United States, or do you see the streak finally ending this year?
That's a good question, Ben. I think this is probably the best year to see that streak end with the Edmonton Oilers because this Oilers team is right now one of the more balanced teams in the league. You've got 4 guys who scored 30 goals. You've got McDavid and Draisaitl, 2 guys who've broken the 40-goal barrier. And defensively, Edmonton is better as it's been quite some time. Now they brought in Mattias Ekholm at the trade deadline, a strong two-way defenseman who's done a lot of great things so far in his 10 games here in Edmonton. And then in net, Stuart Skinner, who wasn't supposed to be the number 1 goaltender, has stepped up in a massive way, went to the All-Star game. So if Skinner can play well, and if that Oilers forward core can sustain throughout the playoffs here, I think Edmonton's got the best shot at winning a cup for Canada for the first time in 30 years.
Did you ever get a chance to play? And what do you think about the inclusion in hockey right now? I mean, you're in hockey media. I don't think there's a lot of people that look like you that are in hockey media. Where do you think it is right now in terms of how inclusive hockey is, and where do you think it needs to go to improve?
Well, I'll start with the playing factor, Armani. Me on skates, that's a tough sight. I'm not a good skater, so for me, playing wasn't that big of a thing. But, in terms of hockey media, when I was a kid growing up, I got started in hockey media when I was 15 years old doing Avery Sports Show and covering junior hockey. And I got to admit, going to the rink, and especially being in northern Alberta, there aren't a lot of black people who are involved in not just hockey media, in media in general up here in northern Alberta. So I would go to the rink all the time, and I would just be the one person who was black. So I admit at first it was a little bit daunting to try and be that trailblazer, but now we're getting better. We're seeing more people who look like me who want to get involved in hockey in the media side. We've got people in New York, a good friend of mine, Kevin Weeks, works at NHL Network. He's been on hockey media for quite some time. There are more hockey podcasts now in America and Canada. I work on a couple of shows that are black dominated on hockey media. I work on a show with a black host, Zone Time on Yahoo Sports. I work on a podcast called the Third Intermission Podcast, which was launched, which is an all-black hosted hockey podcast. So we're making strides more and more. And the game has to really say, you know what, and there's many players and coaches who are of color, who are black. We need these teams and these media bodies to say, you know what, to tell these stories properly, we need to give access to the black storytellers to make sure these stories are told correctly and honestly.
Avery, on your bio, it says sportscaster, host, podcaster, and then I don't know why there's a question mark after fashion guy. Clearly, you've got a little drip there yourself. Talk to me about just NHL fashion and who has the best drip in the league, besides yourself, of course.
Wow, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. I thank you. You know, I grew up in a house where my parents worked in fashion for years, so it was only meant to be. I would have some drip in this world, but there are some players there. Most hockey guys, for the most part, don't have the best drip, but some guys do. I know he's retired now. PK Subban had great drip. Austin Matthews and Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews and William Nylander, those two on Toronto. look very amazing whenever they go to the rink. David Pasternak, he's got wonderful outfits. Patrick Laine in Columbus, he knows how to wear a suit. So there's a few guys. Keandre Miller on the Rangers, he has a great suit collection, tie collection, and Quinton Byfield in LA. Those are guys who are getting it now. They understand that, yes, hockey fashion has to evolve, has to get better, because you see guys who come to the court in the NBA, NFL, their fashion is impeccable. So NHL guys, they're catching up, and I want to see more of it.